Abandoned buildings, cities, amusement parks, and homes can fire up our imagination and leave us wondering what exactly happened to make people leave that area. Why was it deserted and never returned to? What stories are hidden beneath the dust and the rust? We'll uncover some of them with you today. 24 mysterious abandoned places. 24. Dundas Castle, New York. Also known as Craigie Clare Castle, this fairy tale castle was designed by architect Bradford L. Gilbert for his wife Anna Dundas. It was built in the early 1880s, and tragically, before the castle was complete, Gilbert died. His wife couldn't cope with his loss and ended up in a sanatorium. The estate was left to their daughter, but the castle managers misused the money, and she too landed up in the same sanatorium as her mother. The castle is now boarded up with a solitary man living there, who is said to not take too kindly to visitors. 23. Metsu Ermine, Japan. Once a bustling and busy sulfur mine, Metsu Ermine is in O Mountains of central Honshu. It's a volcanic area, so the presence of sulfur was strong. The problem was that area was extremely remote, making it very difficult to transport the deposits. On site, there was a concrete apartment complex which housed 15,000 people. The mine opened in 1914 and it was shut down in 1969, with people filtering out over the next few years. Once called a paradise above the clouds, it now looks like the leftovers of a zombie apocalypse. 22. Michigan Central Station, Detroit, USA. Hard to believe this derelict station used to be the main transportation station of Michigan. Construction began in 1913, and the station was heavily used during the war by troops. When automobiles were more readily available, people were relying less on the train service, and the station was closed in 1967. June of 2018 saw the Ford Motor Company purchase the building, and they plan to build offices, restaurants, and retail, all set to open in 2022. 21. Sansi City, UFO Pods, Taiwan. They're no longer standing, but they spent a few decades garnering curious looks from passers-by. These pod-like structures also go by the name Sansi Pod houses and were built with the intention of being holiday homes. The project was plagued with bad luck, from several deaths on site, car accidents, and huge financial losses. The project was never completed, and demolition began in 2008. By 2010, they were all torn down to make way for a seaside resort and water park. 20. The ghost town of Bodie, Sierra Nevada. Tucked away in Sierra Nevada, California, are the remnants of a once thriving mining town. Founded in 1876, miners came to this small town in search of wealth. The area quickly became known as Sin City, for reasons that are not YouTube friendly, and by the 1940s, Bodie had nothing more to offer miners. It's said to be one of the most well-preserved ghost towns in the world. Many like to believe that ghosts protect the area from thieves, and anyone who dares to take a piece of the town will be plagued by the curse of Bodie. 19. Kilchurn Castle, Scotland. Kilchurn Castle was built in the mid-1400s and abandoned in the 1700s, and today is a superb venue for photographers. Located at the northeastern end of Loch Orr, the castle initially served as the base of the Campbells of Glenorchy, who expanded considerably over the next 150 years. The Campbells became Earls of Breadalbane and moved to Taymouth Castle, leaving Kilchurn empty. The castle is being looked after by Historic Environment Scotland, and you can visit the castle in summer. 18. Sathorn Tower, Bangkok. Bangkok is home to one of the world's tallest abandoned skyscrapers, the Sathorn Tower. The tower went up in the early 90s at a time when the economy was booming. It's 49 stories high and was meant to be a modern residence for the wealthier citizens of Bangkok. When the Asian financial crisis happened, the tower hadn't been completed, and it was never going to happen. It was abandoned in 1997, and today there are those that like to climb to the top to get the most exquisite views of Bangkok. 17. IM Cooling Tower, Belgium. It served an important purpose in its time, from 1921 to 2007, when it formed part of the IM power plant in Monceau, Belgium. It was the main supplier of power for Belgium, but the power plant was emitting very high CO2 emissions, and it was closed and abandoned. When it was still active, it was able to cool down 480,000 gallons of water every minute. 16. Raegyang Hotel, Pyongyang, North Korea. It's not a site that evokes happy thoughts for those living in North Korea, as it spoils Pyongyang's skyline. It's an unoccupied and unfinished 105-story hotel that was built in 1987. After 5 years, construction ceased due to lack of funds. It lay lifeless for over 20 years until construction resumed in 2008. The initial plan was to reopen in 2012 to celebrate the centenary of King Il-sung's birth, but that didn't come to fruition. By 2018, there was an LED display added to the side of the structure, which would display movie scenes and animations. Whether this hotel will ever operate is open to debate. 15. The Teufelsberg, Germany. A more intriguing name is Devil's Mountain, and this man-made hill sits in the middle of Grunewald Forest. The hill was made from rubble left over from the war. 800 trucks would bring the rubble to this area and dump it daily. Eventually, there was 26 million cubic meters of rubble, and the Teufelsberg spy station was built on top of it. At one point, 1,500 people worked there in 3 shifts every day. There are plans to convert the area into a calm place where people can escape the city life and relax. 14. Cape Romano, Florida. Sticking out of the waters on the southern tip of Marco Island are these mysterious-looking domes. Many thought they were part of a secret cult or possibly left behind by aliens, but the truth is far less exciting. These homes were built in 1980 by Rob Lee, an independent oil producer. He was way ahead of the times as the homes were self-sustaining and solar-powered. The domes weren't always in water, but due to erosion, they're now sitting 180 feet offshore. Hurricane Irma destroyed 2 of the domes in 2017. 13. Fordlandia, Brazil. In 1927, Henry Ford took a chance and tried to create a huge rubber plantation in the Amazon jungle. His vision was to create a city surrounding the plant with swimming pools, golf course, and bungalows. There was one big flaw which didn't work for the employees, and that was a liquor ban. The workers were infuriated and threw the cars into the river, and Ford's vision was over by 1930. The place has been empty ever since. 12. Hafodunos Hall, North Wales. This home was designed by Sir George Gilbert Scott and erected between 1861 and 1866. It was built for Henry Robertson Sandbach, and this house was to replace a much older dwelling built in 1674. There have been homes on the property since 1530. The Sandbach family sold the hall in the early 1930s, and it's been used as a private girls' school and an old-age home. A fire destroyed a great portion of the house in 2004, and it was eventually sold for £390,000 in 2010. 11. New Bedford Orpheum Theatre, United States. This old theatre and movie house officially opened on April 15, 1912, and operated for almost 50 years. It could seat 1,500 people and was originally called the Majestic Opera House. It was converted into a movie house when vaudeville shows fell into decline. The theatre closed in 1959 and became a storage facility for tobacco. The theatre is privately owned, but still remains empty. 10. Presidio Modelo, Cuba. Considered the model prison, Presidio Modelo has been empty since 1967. It was built by Gerardo Machado between 1926 and 1928 and could house 2,500 prisoners. The design meant that all cells could be watched at the same time. One of the most famous inmates was Fidel Castro, and when he was in power, the number of prisoners rose to 6,000. Riots and hunger strikes became the norm, and it was closed by the government in 1967. It's now a museum which you can visit. 9. Kijongdong, North Korea. Also called Peace Village, this small village lies between North and South Korea in a demilitarized zone. The North Korean government claims there are around 200 farmers living there, with a small school and a few shops. But South Korea claim the area to be uninhabited and that the houses have no windows. So whether there are people there or not is anyone's guess. 8. Varosha, Cyprus. This was once a modern, bustling tourist area in the early 1970s and was home to gorgeous beaches and beautiful hotels that had the likes of Elizabeth Taylor and Brigitte Bardot come and visit. When Turkey invaded the area in 1974, people fled the area, and it's been boarded up and abandoned ever since. 7. Ciudad Valdeluz, Spain. This ghost town is just northeast of Madrid in Spain and was supposed to be a city for up to 30,000 people. Terrible economic conditions meant that construction was halted in 2008 and only 1,000 people took up residency there. There is one supermarket, one corner shop, and a medical center that only opens twice a week. 6. Monsell Forts, England. These intriguing structures used to serve as naval and army forts and were built in 1942. They weren't in use for long and were decommissioned in 1950. Their main purpose was to provide anti-aircraft fire. There are 7 towers in total, and on a clear day, you can see them from Shoeburyness East Beach. It is illegal to try and climb them. 5. Villa Epicyon, Buenos Aires Province, Argentina. For almost 60 years, this tourist village in Buenos Aires Province was very popular. Sadly, in 1985, the village was flooded and abandoned. Despite the water eventually receding, it remained empty. There was one resident still living there, Pablo Novak, but whether he is still alive or not is not clear. 4. Kolmanskop, Namibia. Namibia is home to a hauntingly beautiful abandoned settlement called Kolmanskop. It was a busy spot in the early 1900s when the Germans made it their home and started digging for diamonds. When the diamond supply was depleted, the town was deserted, but now makes the perfect backdrop for gorgeous photographs. 3. Murphy's Ranch, Santa Monica. There's an unusual story attached to Murphy's Ranch. It was built in the early 1900s by Winona and Norman Stevens, who were convinced that when Germany won the war, America would crumble, leading to anarchy in the US. They believed this story so much that they built this self-sustaining community. Of course, things didn't pan out and the couple were taken into custody. They spent roughly $4 million on the property, which included a power station, fully irrigated hillside to grow food, water tanks, machine shed, and a storage place for diesel fuel. 2. Ross Island, India. Named after surveyor Sir Daniel Ross, Ross Island was the administrative center for the Indian penal settlement. It was inhabited between 1788 and 1789. Weather on the island was so bad and many lives were lost, with the site eventually being abandoned. In 1887, the British government tried to set up a jail and penal colony, but that didn't pan out. It's now maintained by the Indian government and is a major tourist attraction. Before our number 1 mysterious abandoned place, which of these would you most like to visit? Let us know in the comments below. 1. Gaza International Airport, Gaza Strip. It's also called the Yasser Arafat International Airport. This airport opened in 1998. In a year, it had 700,000 passengers pass through, but by 2001, Israeli forces had destroyed huge parts of it. A few weeks after that, they bulldozed the runway, and all that remains today are broken bits of building. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button over here and subscribe for more videos over here.